The world population is 7 billion, and it's projected to be 10 billion by 2050. With all these people on our planet, shouldn't we be worried about depleting our food sources by then? Hi, this is Takatoshi Shibayama, host of the Future Design Podcast. I run a blockchain solutions company, and I'm always looking for new technologies and ideas to improve our lives. Today I have KaYi Ling, co-founder of Shiok Meats, a cell-based meat production startup based in Singapore. And she talks to us about how producing meat from stem cells can alter the way we treat our planet, our animals, and avoid diseases. Shiok Meats is getting ready for commercialization next year, so if you're interested, stick around to the end.
Future Design Podcast.
I was been always interested on cell-based meat, particularly because it's a fascinating scientific experiment, I think. And my first initial thought about it is like, when can we actually have this? When can we get to see a commercialized version of this cell-based meat?
For us, we're aiming to launch our product end of next year, so 2021, in 1 or 2 restaurants in Singapore. So that's our goal. We're working very hard on. But actually, I think it's a similar range even for the older companies like Memphis, Mosa. The earliest I've heard is 2021, especially with the current, delays with COVID. Everybody slowed down productivity a lot. So I would guess the earliest would be sometime next year or the following year.
And what does it mean to scale in terms of your business? Because we've known companies like Beyond Meat and Impossible, they always have all these massive labs around the country to distribute their products. So will it be very similar for you guys as well?
For us, our focus is in APAC. So we started in Singapore because we really like the food safety regulations here. The food regulators are very open to speak with us. And after that, we're looking in, other Asia and, Australia. Australia is one of them, Southeast Asia, Hong Kong. Those are locations. And we're hoping to minimize the, footprint from having to ship our products. So we're looking to build factories in each of these key cities or countries we're interested in. And then at least it could be sort of local production in that way. So at some point, we're looking to partner with local companies. For example, US is somewhere where we have a lot of interest, but we won't, not for the near future, go and build a plant there ourselves. So we might be looking to work with other like-minded companies there and license our technology to them. So that's kind of our strategy. We'll have a key few plants within APAC. And then the rest of the world, we're happy to license our technology out.
Is that a funding issue that you decided not to expand really quickly, just like any other startup, their dream is to scale up quickly, right? So, but for you guys, your decision to stay within this geographical location, not, trying to expand out to US and Europe and all that, is that a business decision based on funding, or is it more on, technical things?
I guess practically, we're not looking to conquer the world. We want to do what we do well. We don't want to spread ourselves too thin. And, Asia Pacific is very special to me and Sandia because we're both from Asia. And we feel like there's not enough coverage from the different companies here. And that's actually where most of the population growth is, in China and India. So there's a lot of work that should be done here. And, I can understand why everyone moves to US to do it, because that's where the ecosystem is. But, where we really need it is the other side of the world. So I wouldn't say it's a money issue. I think we're just interested in doing what we do well, and then we're happy to partner with other partners, so we don't have to do everything ourselves.
Yeah. And compared to your competitor, I wouldn't even call them competitor because they're not exactly creating a similar product. That Beyond and Impossibles, they're actually using plant-based, and you guys are doing the cell-based, and it's a very different animal. Excuse the pun. And if you were to expand this out into Asia, how would you strategically do this? Because obviously you need labs, you need scientists to recreate the same things that you're doing. So what would be the trajectory of expanding your business in this region?
I mean, our R&D focus would be in Singapore. We'll build our manufacturing plants after we have our pilot plant set up in Singapore. So that's like a mini model for us to do it in other countries. So that's kind of the strategy we have, that we're not going to build replicates of everything in each of the countries we go to. It'll be sort of more centralized where most of the technological innovations are happening. Maybe we would consider in one of our other bigger manufacturing plant areas to have a complementary R&D lab. I wouldn't have exactly the same work being replicated elsewhere because, you know, for us, we are aware in Asia the money is different from raising in the US, and the growth is different as well. For us, we don't want to be, you know, just keep raising money and keep expanding and building more buildings, but actually we're not making any money and nothing goes back to our investors. Our point is to bring down the price of our product as much as possible so that it can reach as many people as possible. I mean, I'm not a business person, so a lot of these business ideas, they're not my forte, but, you know, I'm glad that Sanya and I agree on a lot of these things, that this is how we want to do it. We're not doing this for the money. It's because we want to have something that can benefit people we love and everyone else in the world. So for us, that's how we want to do it. At some point, it might not be just our choice, but for now, I mean, as much as we can, that's what we push for.
Right. And you touched upon like scaling, and we both touched upon it, and you wanted the price to come down. Obviously, that's the key for this product to really reach mass adoption, is that how cheap can it get? Because initially when, you know, the other competitors started out, and yourselves as well, I'm sure the prices are very expensive, but you need to expand out well enough so that the price can come down. So, you know, how is that going to look like? I mean, if you were to price set this, you know, what does it need to come down to a level that you can actually compete with the other natural meat products?
Yeah, for us, it's seafood. So our focus is only on crustaceans, prawns, crabs, and lobsters. And right now, obviously, when we enter next year, we're hoping to be at what you would expect organic food to be versus traditionally farmed meat. Small farms, they're always more expensive, maybe 20-30%. So to start, it would be at high-end restaurants. It's not going to be at grocery stores for everyone to purchase because that's just going to be too expensive at such a small scale. And then after that, you know, with larger manufacturing volume, bulk purchasing, prices will further go down. And the reality is that the way we're farming and the way we are fishing, it's coming to a limit. You know, it actually takes many years for lobsters and crabs to grow out, and you can't really farm them. So we keep catching them, eating our chili crabs, all the egg prawns, but, you know, at some point it is really running out. And do you really want to continue eating it with like all the, you know, global warming and then diseases affecting all the animals and all the microplastics and chemicals? These all accumulate in the sea creatures we eat from the sea. So I would foresee in 10 years that the price of a regular fished, you know, a fished shrimp or lobster would be at least 2 or 3 times more expensive than it currently is, because there's not that much you can keep going for, and everybody wants the huge ones. Nobody wants the tiny ones. So, you know, their prices will keep going up while we'll keep coming down with our technological improvements and also increase in scale and consumer purchase. The demand and supply will drive our prices down. I wouldn't expect in the next 10 years that our price will become lower, than what it is for regular traditional farm shrimp or crab and lobster now. But I would say in 10 years, we will be able to at least match it and make a revenue profit for the company. So I think that's where we will be.
You're basically eyeing the future and saying that because there are all these animals are going to be close to being extinct or very hard to catch, that your price is going to come down enough so that it would actually outbeat those prices, which I think is a really interesting way to look at your price. And is there why you focused on crustaceans? Because, you know, we all eat different types of meats, from cows to seafood and crustaceans that you mentioned. Is it because it's easier to, you know, create, or is it something else?
Yeah, there are various reasons. I mean, one to start was that we wanted to be an APAC company. So we wanted something that people in Asia eat a lot. And actually, compared to beef, we eat a lot more seafood. So, and what is the most common seafood dish? Actually, it's mostly shrimp. And, you know, the related family of it is the lobster, which is actually one of the highest priced seafood around. So for us, we wanted something unique, distinctively Asian, and there was no research done on crustaceans before we started. So basically, Sandhya and I kind of did like a PhD again, trying to figure out the technology. So because we're both strong in our technological background, so we have an edge. I would say, you know, it wouldn't have taken this short a period if it was started by, let's say, engineers or biochemists, not cell biologists. So we both are stem cell trained. We've done this in other animals. So we took our previous knowledge and we could start it. So it kind of gives us a technological edge over other people. I mean, even almost 1 year and 8 months in, there's not really anyone else working on crustaceans. This year, there are a few academic groups who applied for grants, but they're nonprofit and they're just starting. So it's not trivial. And so, I mean, in the US, people don't really care for seafood that much. And most, they look into sashimi, so tuna, salmon. So those are the more popular ones. And we want it to be, you know, not directly competing with everyone else.
Yeah. Well, Asia, a lot of the countries that are, especially in Southeast Asia, are very close to the sea. So seafood is a very easy choice for us. In the US, I guess, majority of the country is inland. So people eat land animals compared to seafood. Coastal cities obviously eat them. But I want to know also, like, how did you get onto this journey? You had a very philosophical idea that you don't want, it's not about the money, it's about creating healthier food options. So what made you decide that you want to go about doing this?
Well, Shiok Meats was actually ideated by Sandhya, my co-founder CEO, and our first advisor and early investor, Ryan Betancourt. They were friends from very long ago, from her previous startup experience, and she wanted to do a full-time startup. And, you know, with her expertise in stem cells, it's either cell therapy to create medical cures for people, or in cell-based meats. And practically, you know, and of more interest to her, food resonated a lot more than medication, because medication takes, you know, decades to actually get to the market, and a lot of times only later on at the end you find out that, oops, actually it can't be commercialized, unfortunately. So that's their idea. And for me, myself, I knew Sandhya on and off from networking in our previous research institute where we crossed paths. And I actually attended a networking session where she was sharing her experience moving from a research scientist to a business development manager, and at the same time running 2 startups. So that's where I met her, and we weren't exactly, you know, friends, but we saw each other at different events and networking. So we kept in touch, and she was looking for a scientist who was familiar with stem cells. And at the time, personally, I was moving out of academia. So it's not my thing. I love doing research. I love science, but it's not what I want to do to be writing grants and then publishing papers, which none of my family would understand when it's actually going on. So I was really excited when she shared with me the idea of making shrimp from stem cells because I love working with stem cells and, understanding how things divide and change depending on its conditions. And I love to eat. And, I was super excited that you can actually piece two different things together. Actually, in 2018, this is kind of already, I mean, it was still not as popular as now. Now most people know what it is. Even back then, I love science, I read science, but I wasn't that familiar. I knew Mark Post made his expensive burger, but I never thought too much anything else of it. So I was really excited to put everything together and be able to work on this. So on mostly it was my personal interests, I guess, that drove me to join Sandia and start the company together.
Yeah, so you're saying that you came in from a academically curiosity and you wanted to explore this stem cell on a commercial level. So sometimes, I think that, when I hear people who are working on these things, they think about, oh, I care about people's health, I care about the environment, care about animal cruelty. What is it that you think that you're trying to solve in your business?
We're targeting to give people environmentally friendly, animal friendly, and health friendly food. For me, the main drive is that I was studying in the US for a long time in Wisconsin, where there are a lot of farmers. My favorite thing is to go to the farmers market every week, and I know where my food comes from. But coming back to Singapore, if you ask people in the supermarket or the restaurants, they will look at you funny and they don't understand what you're asking for. They're like, yeah, it's from Vietnam, it's from Thailand. What more do you want to know? But I want to know, how was the farm? Was it intensive farming? What kind of chemicals were used? And this is not something that can be answered. Of course, the food here is very safe, but we don't have much information on how different food are produced. And that means a lot to me. And especially, you know, I'm not a vegetarian. For Sandhya, she came in from the point that she wanted her husband and her son to have a clean source and ethical source of meat to eat. For me, I want myself and my family, people I love, to have the option to eat what you want and not feel like, you can't eat it anymore because it's extinct or endangered or it's bad for your health. And honestly, I'm not such an environmentalist to start with, but it's definitely something we should all think about, that every effort that we make, less plastics, recycle more, and being aware of what you eat will help us keep the world a better place for, our future, either our own kids or our nieces and nephews. Yeah.
Yeah, and you touched upon the health part, and your partner Sandra wanted her husband and her son to eat healthy. So can you talk about like the health benefits of this, because it is a cell-based meat, so it's kind of a bit foreign for us, because it's not really coming from the animal. You're actually creating something completely, well, resembling what it should be, but it's still not a living thing. So can you describe us a little bit about what this cell-based meat is?
Yeah, so I mean, it is basically what we eat. So what we're using, the cell technology or biotechnology, if you want to call it, it's to basically only grow the parts that we eat. We don't eat the shells that much. We don't eat the eyes or the legs. So why are we wasting so much energy and effort to grow the whole animal? What we usually eat is just the meat component, which is muscle and fat. And that's what we do. Basically, stem cells, there are many different types of it. if you give it the right conditions, it can make whatever cells you want to. For example, the egg and the sperm, when they came together and then they fuse and fertilize, that is the totipotent cell. It can make everything in your body. It's the most amazing cell in the world. So we don't need that one. But I mean, it has the flexibility to make everything in the right condition. So you must know how to guide it to its right path. It's kind of like having a guru telling you what to do, but in terms of a solution with proteins, basically. So yeah, cell-based technology is basically you take the stem cells of what you want to grow. For us, it's muscle and fat from the animal we are interested in, shrimp, crab, and lobster. And then kind of give it a greenhouse environment, the right temperature, the right nutrients so it can grow. Excuse me. And then at the end, what we get is a minced product. Excuse me.
No worries.
Yeah, so yeah, that's what we get. And then we're also actively working on giving it the right texture that we are familiar with, the shrimp bounciness and the shape of it. And that will require more tissue engineering techniques where you kind of give it a mold so you can shape it, and then you give it extra texture from having some other type of ingredient mixed with it.
Right, because I heard about the Beyond Meats and Impossibles. They use this thing called heme that they could get from soy products or potatoes, and they mix it with yeast and give it that meaty taste to the burger. So I guess
that's the taste.
Yeah, but your cell-based meat has never been exercised, so you have to, I don't know, so-called give it some exercise to make it into a more bouncy taste to it, I guess. Because you said, probably it comes out, I don't know, you could tell me, but like, what does it even look like? You have to mold it into
like a paste. It's like, if you buy a paste to make fish ball or prawn ball, it's just mincemeat. So if you wanted to do it from shrimps, basically deshell it, remove all the legs and head, you have to chop it up until it's a paste. So that's basically what we get after we grow it in our bioreactors or steel tanks, which kind of looks like a brewery, just that we grow shrimp cells instead of beer.
We want to really know what if it's really safe, right? So I think obviously you talk to the health authorities about getting this approved and certify that this is healthy. So it's as I said, it's quite new to us, so it's a little bit of a concern for us if it's really good for us. Just like the GMOs that they talk about and plants. I mean, I'm not saying this is tit for tat, but if people don't like GMOs because they supposedly say that it's growing some kind of different plant than it actually really is because it's modified. So isn't that that logic kind of seems like it makes it into the cell-based meat as well?
Well, we're not doing any genetic modification because we know consumers are concerned, even if there is no reason to be. As a scientist, I wouldn't agree. It's just a tool. So, you can use a knife to open letters, or you can use it to stab someone. So it depends what your intention is. And actually, some of the intentions or results are actually pretty good, but it has been obviously when it comes to businesses and large corporations, often they will use tools to benefit their cause, which is to make more money. For example, processed food has a lot of ingredients in there to basically make people addicted. Cell-based meats, I would say, is a lot safer actually than traditional farmed animals because we don't need to use hormones, we don't need to use antibiotics, we don't need to put in pesticides, which unfortunately when you go into intensive farming, that's how they minimize diseases, and that's not what you want in your food. And because we keep it in the greenhouse environment, we don't need to use these chemicals that are bad for our health. And also the other thing that we all should be concerned with, we don't really think about, is the ocean itself is very polluted, and there's honestly no way to clean it out. However, if we do it outside of an enclosed system, we do it in separated tanks, we can filter and clean the water, and it's actually the cleanest water, even cleaner than what we drink on a regular basis. So we remove all the contaminants in there, no microplastics, no mercury. All of these are accumulated in the seafood we eat. I mean, I definitely have reduced my consumption of seafood knowing the conditions that it is and keeps worsening. That's two. And then this other health benefit or good thing about cell-based meats is that we grow the muscle and fat separately. There are people who actually are not able to consume crustaceans because of cholesterol concerns, which come from the fat component. So for those people, we're able to separate out and give them just a lean version of crustacean. We don't need to. I mean, obviously, for me, I would like to recreate something that is nutritionally equivalent to what we usually eat, but there are a lot of other people who would love for a lean version of shrimp or crab and lobster and still taste just as good.
Yeah, I know a lot of friends back home that have gout, and they're restricted from eating crustaceans. So I think it will help them out quite a lot. And then, does gout actually derive from that fat that you were just mentioning?
I'm not so familiar with gout. I thought it was accumulation of some uric acid related components,
Yeah.
which it might be quite high in crustaceans and seafood. I know gout patients tend to have to be quite strict on their diet in general.
Yeah, if that could alleviate them and get back to eating crustaceans, that would be really good. Yeah, well, I also know that shrimps are probably the most heavily reproduced seafood out there. There's a lot of shrimp farms in Malaysia and Indonesia, and they also very common that they have infectious diseases and they have to shut down the whole plant and redo it all over. And the conditions that they actually live in is like a super contained place, very dirty inside the waters, and thinking about where actually our shrimp comes from, it sounds like a much better solution if we could get it from the wild, and maybe your product is also another solution for that.
Yeah, there are a lot other groups who are working either on vertical farming, so enclosed tanks, not in the oceans. Those are just like us because we are able to separate from the ocean, so we can clean it. But there are different benefits for each system, and what we're trying to do at Shiok Meats is not to eliminate all other competitors. What we want to do is to just supply good food and give consumers the choice that you can choose to eat something that is good for you, the environment, and the animals. Because at the end of the day, we don't have to kill one animal for each animal we eat. Each animal we extract ourselves from can produce many animal equivalents worth of meat. So that is actually, something that will resonate with quite a lot of people who are concerned about animal welfare.
No, definitely. I mean, animal cruelty, I think, hasn't been talked much enough. I mean, there's documentaries showing slaughtering the animals, but in our daily lives, we just go to the supermarket and we pick up a sliced meat that says shabu shabu on it, or a burger, or something, and they completely disguise the fact that they actually come from animals. And even the environmental benefit of it as well. I mean, we graze these animals. We actually grow food for them to eat. So we can take all that land. Yeah, it's a massive carbon emission reduction that we can experience from completely cutting out that logic. So if you can scale this business into something that we can completely replace cruelty to animals, or raising cattle and destroying the environment, it'll be a huge game changer. And I really want you to really succeed in this business.
Thank you. We're really excited about working on this, and look out for us. I mean, we definitely will release pressed before we actually launch it. But the goal will be end of next year. Hopefully, we're raising funds now to build our pilot plant to manufacture our shrimp for restaurants and groceries. So, keeping our fingers crossed, everything falls in the timeline. It will be end of next year.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Taka.
Hi, this is your host Takatoshi Shibayama. Thank you for listening all the way to the end. Now, if you enjoyed or disliked the show, please let me know by writing in the comment section. The only way I can improve or add value to you is through your voices. If there are any topics that you would like me to pick up, please also let me know in the comments. I'd love to start chatting with you all. And if you would like to continue watching the show, please subscribe. Thank you.